Hello you lovely people and welcome. Last week saw the release of the Azurpoly Transall C-160. I've had a few days to check it out and I think I'm ready to review it now. So we'll start with deliveries. So it's the base model is the C-160R, which is the Renové or refit, renovation, upgraded version. And the liveries that come with it, you got your standard French Air Force grey, standard French Air Force camo, the Farewell livery, the standard up-to-date Luftwaffe camo, the old camo, which is my preference, the French Air France cargo, which was the work for the French mail service, Red Cross R90, the Bel Air A03, which worked for the Red Cross for a couple of years, the South African Air Force, which are all retired, Turkish Air Force, still have 2 in service, and then we have just a plain white. So Turkey being the only one who have any still flying, France now have got rid of all theirs, Luftwaffe got rid of all of theirs, South African Air Force retired theirs years ago, so we've just got the 2 with I believe one of them is sprayed up for Turkish Stars display team, and there may still be a little bit of life left in them, as Wyland Aviation Group out in Australia have bought 3 ex-Luftwaffe C-160s for conversion to water bombers for firefighting, so they'll get a little bit more life in them. The only model that I know it's very there are only 2 ever built is the C-160G Gabriel or however you want to pronounce it, which were used for air electronic surveillance. They've got lots of lumps and bumps and aerials on them, and would have been nice just to have had an option to click something in the electronic flight board to just add those, but you can't have everything. This alone is enough, really. It's a really good flight model. So I'm going to go with the standard French Air Force grey. We'll jump in and have a look. So before we get busy in the cockpit, we'll have a quick walk around. As you can see, it's very nicely modelled. The additions of the remove before flight tags, the covers for the engines, the tie downs for the props, little things like that. All little additions that have been added to give it a little bit more immersion. But it is just a superb model in itself. Very good. Azurpoly they've failed to disappoint since introducing aircraft into flight sim. Their Magister was fantastic, their Epsilon was fantastic. This is no slouch either. So I mean, it really does look the part. So if we jump in, when you first jump in, this is what you're greeted with. Very nicely modelled cockpit, and also comes with an electronic flight board, as seems to be the style of the times at the moment, with a majority of releases that have come out for flight sim for all the added extras, but we'll get into the flight board in a minute, so we'll move that out the way. But looking around, I mean, you've got little things that you can mess around with, open windows, We look behind us, we can either move seats, which is a bit of an odd feature, but still cool anyway. Yeah, it really is a nicely done cockpit, and all of it comes to life. None of it is out of use or inoperative as far as I'm aware. So yeah, let's get the thing fired up and I'll show you what it looks like live. I've got the APU fired up so we can have a look around a few of the systems. If we jump over to the center seat, as you can see, we've got electronic HSI and ADI there, and as well as a digital output for the altimeter as well as the gauge itself. But majority of everything is steam gauges, which in my mind is the only way to fly because it's the most reliable, and if there is a power failure, the majority of these gauges will still keep going. We have methanol tanks, which can be used. I suppose this was an addition for South African Air Force because of the high weather that they have over there. The methanol water injection into the engine to help give it a little bit more output, which the controls for that are up here. There we go. We can switch the tanks on, and then that will introduce that into the flow into the engines. We have a weather radar, which is controlled by this box here. No idea how to use it, as I've never really used one before. But it does show up weather and everything when you're flying through it, so that's all good. You've got your FADEC for pilot and co-pilot. You've got IRS for aligning the systems. Little features like that, which is always a nice touch. Not only that, but you've got the electronic flight board to go through yet for all the cargo. You've got this little beauty of a box here, which is for the flares, and you push that button and the C-160 farts a load of flares out, which is really cool. Nice little addition. They're not 100% perfect, but they are there. So that's the cockpit, really. I mean, not really much else to show you over here. There's another FADEC over here that you can switch on, and some other bits and pieces. I guess that was for the flight engineer or navigation officer. And then I'm sitting in the jump seat. Down here, if we were to walk down these steps and down to the left there, that'll take us to the cargo hold, and obviously that's the exit. Speaking of the exit, we'll open the ramp door, and there you go. We have a ramp to get into the back. There aren't any drop downs to get anything in, so I don't know how they would get vehicles in and out of that. I guess they'd have some sort of extension, but there is another cool feature to help load the cargo in the back. If we come back in and toggle the flight board, okay, so we'll come to this part at the moment. As you can see, APU's already started. If we go click on this section, and we can add different cargoes, we can arrange the seats so that they're actually dropped down instead of folded up. But this is the bit that I was talking about, fuselage lowering. We'll click that, and you'll see that the fuselage is slowly starting to sag at the back and raise at the front. And I think that's a fantastic addition as well. That really does drop down quite low. And you can also open all your doors here, clicking these yellow circles. As you can see, we've got doors open everywhere now. Then you can start adding the cargo. You've got the cargo bay lights on and off there. We can load a water tank or oil tank, a VBL1, a VAB, a VBL2, some barrels, some boxes, and there's pallet 1 and 2. So if we go for pallet 1 and pallet 2, you can see that pallet 1 and pallet 2 are loaded. We can add more. Obviously we'd be a bit tail heavy. We jump back into the cockpit again, and if we'll add the water tank. We'll raise the fuselage as well while we're at it. And as you can see, you can just keep adding and taking away all the cargo that you like. And like I said, you can fold these seats down. Entirely up to you. So we will close these doors. Get rid of pallet 1, pallet 2 and the tank. Keep it empty. We fold the seats down though. VBL2. Seats there and there. Okay. You can open the gear compartment as well. And there you can see the gear compartment for the aft gear. Both sides, you can access those and have a look inside. We'll close that. Now another thing, if you don't want to keep fiddling around with switches and things, you can close the cargo bay doors with these buttons here. I prefer to do the conventional method of just closing it. You can also reload your flares here if you've used all of them. And then we've got some extras here that are really cool. You can add propeller dust effect, and you can also add propeller vortices as well, which has a really cool effect when you're flying. And I'll show you those when we get a bit further. You can also add in your co-pilot. A bit over the top, it's got G-suit and bone dome on, and an oxygen mask for cargo flying, but he's there nonetheless. Now if we come down to the next section, this is your fuel tanks, and you can change your fuel status here. Here's a moving map, basic autopilot functions, information on the aircraft. Got the latest version, it's just been released, so yes, I would have. You can't do anything else. Right, and then you've got APU, you can click there, or you can ground power unit instead. So you've got the choice of those. You can remove and add wheel chocks with a click of a button. You can set it to cold and dark straight away, started straight away, or ready for takeoff straight away. But these are cheats, so if you don't have the time to do the normal starting procedure, you've got these to help you out, which is a nice little touch. Now let's get the engine started and get flying. One thing that's been added, and something that you must remember before taking off, is that there is the prop sync switch here, and switching it on is very advisable if you don't want vibrations and rattling while you're flying. And what this will do is it will sync obviously the props to spin at the same frequency and stop reverberations through the airframe. So let's have a look outside with it started. I've got those selected. We'll taxi out, and hopefully once we get up in the air we'll start seeing some vortices around the prop. So release park and brake. Don't really need to advance the throttles at all, it'll already start moving on its own. Ground handling is very good. You get the sense of a heavy aircraft. It's not overly sensitive, but it's not sluggish either. Okay, let's get rid of the flight board. So we're all lined up ready to go. Do notch your flap. Okay. Jump outside and have a look. And there you go, we've got the wing vortices, which is a nice little effect. Nice little addition. Go to the flight board. I'm going to switch those off now. And the prop dust, don't need it. Let's get rid of the co-pilot while we're at it as well. So next up, I will show you the flares. Okay, just level out. Let's walk back slightly. Tell it's a very solid platform, no vibrations, no rattles, no bumping up and down. It's very much point and it will go where you want it to go. So let's switch on the flares. You flick that switch down and hit this button here. Outside. Wait for the flares, there we go. I think that's a great little addition. First one, I believe, on Microsoft Flight Simulator to have the flares. I could be wrong. So this thing up high handles really well as flying low. It's a good all-round performer. So if you're going long haul or even short haul, it will do the job without any hassle. There you get the impression of a heavy sluggish aircraft with the controls as well, which is good. Okay, so we get this thing down and low. You can see about 25 foot off the ground, and it flies great. Got a little bit of a frame rate hit there, but that's because my PC's a dinosaur, so ignore that. Okay, I'm going to bring it in for a landing now. The reverse thrust on this is quite good. The stopping distance, obviously not being loaded very much, is obviously going to be quite short, but again, it gets the job done. If you ever find yourself going a little bit too fast, this thing has big old barn door spoilers, which is quite impressive. Anyway, make our way back into Macrahanish now. And when it comes to landing this beast, I prefer to do it tactically. Gear down. Gear down, flaps down, everything is down. Down. Spoilers extended. Goes down. Reverse thrust. That is not. It may seem like look like an easy thing to do, but when you've got a side wind, definitely not. So yeah, like I say, this aircraft is a lot of fun. There's a lot going on with it. I believe there's still a lot more to come from it. But yeah, let's get on to the summary. Okay, so to sum the aircraft up, it's not a difficult thing to do. This thing is absolutely fantastic. When I first heard that Azurpoly were doing a C-160, I was really looking forward to it, because it's an aircraft that associate with my childhood, seeing at air shows all the time, and yeah, it used to be quite a regular sight back in the 80s and early 90s around the Mildenhall, Lakenheath area. So it's nice to have something like that in sim to fly, and in such depth as well. It's not just a mishmash of default flight sim avionics rammed into a C-160 shell. Everything is its own entity, and it flies beautiful. It really is such a good aircraft. I know I say that with pretty much everything that I review, but Azurpoly have really started a trend. They have not disappointed at all with any of their aircraft, and it's accumulated to something big and chunky and heavy and great to fly, and I can't fault it at all. Anyone who's hesitant about buying it, I'll put it this way: A400. Okay, I had the A400. Wasn't good. This, for a cheaper price than the A400, smashes the A400 out of the park. In terms of flight dynamics, in terms of just the way it's put together, the attention to detail. I mean, nothing against the developer of the A400, but for the price that it's going for, it should not be the level it is at. It should be a lot better, whereas this is leagues ahead and cheaper. You want a heavy to fly around that's not commercial, this is it. As far as I'm aware, there aren't any more heavies out there in military wise. Less said about the C-130 the better, that can really compete with this at the moment. This really has come in at the #1 slot, and it's going to hold it for a while. Well, for the military cargo lift fans anyway. Yeah, fantastic, really good. Little features, little add-ons, just everything. Sounds brilliant, looks brilliant. Little flares, the fuselage drooping, the different cargo options, the Vortice add-on you can add or get rid of depending on how your computer system. They've obviously thought about people who have lower end machines, so the Vortices are removable, as is the dust. Yeah, brilliant, really user friendly, and the only downside is the checklist and the manual. If you're going to try and start the aircraft from the manual or the checklist, you won't get the aircraft started properly, because there are omissions in there. Just as an oversight, I think, I don't think it's obviously not intentionally left out, but the checklist is incomplete, as is the manual startup procedure. So that is the only downside. But then again, why would you need to start it up manually when you've got the options on the electronic flight board? So swings and roundabouts really, but I can't fault this aircraft at all. Absolutely brilliant. I'm going to end it here, and I hope you've enjoyed the video. and as always, take care, and I'll see you in the next one.